Welcome to my full gym push day video. Before all my heavier lifts, I do some warm-up sets of the same movement I'm going to perform first. Here is my first working set, 205 pounds for 5 reps. Now if this is a workout that you think you are interested in trying out, then I will put all the exercises with sets, reps, and weights I lifted in the description. Following this, I hit 225 pounds for 3 reps, which is actually a PR for me, with that last rep really going up slowly. To compare relative strength to my numbers, I am 5'7", 160 pounds currently. I had 3 years of lifting experience before I quit for 2 years, but now I've been back at the gym for 9 weeks and been doing this current workout I made for the entire 9 weeks. My strength has exploded back up to nearly where I was about at when I stopped, which truly shows how real muscle memory is. My growth curve, however, the last few weeks I've noticed is starting to even out rather than me continuing to exponentially grow in strength and size as I was. This is displayed here with me attempting 245 pounds for a PR. My current PR is 240 pounds. Also guys, don't do what I did here going for PRs without a spotter or some sort of safety system. I was impatient to set myself up at a squat rack and there was really no one around to spot me at 2 a.m. Yeah, I'm rolling the bar along my abdomen in a panic. And yes, my belly is still tender to touch right now. Nothing like a life or death experience to get you thinking though. At least for me, it got me thinking what I could do to break through this plateau. Oh, and also to be careful and be sure to practice safety first next time. That concludes the flat bench pressing, and I moved on to doing some incline bench press for 2 sets. The first set is 85-pound dumbbells for 6 reps, and the second is 80-pound dumbbells for 6 reps. Some things to keep in mind when doing this movement is to first to be sure to keep your butt on the bench, because if you lift up too much, you're changing your angles and you might as well be doing the flat bench press. Also, it puts undue stress on your neck. Secondly, try stacking your joints over each other. I make sure my wrist is directly over my elbow. When I started doing this for my dumbbell bench pressing, definitely had some noticeable changes in how much I could lift. Anyway, back to how I plan to break these plateaus. Sure, I may have failed with that 245-pound lift because I over-fatigued for that third rep of 225 pounds, but this still got me thinking for a different game plan than just trying again and again and potentially just spinning my wheels and not getting anywhere. The first thing I'm planning to do is to deload for a week and then switch things up with a different workout plan that I am writing out pretty soon. This is mainly because I feel like I have failed a few of my heavier lifts lately for personal bests, indicating I am hitting a plateau. To combat this, giving my body a week to rest by doing some lighter work in the gym for a week is my first step I'm taking to break this plateau. The next exercise I'm doing is the weighted dip. This helps round out my chest workout because with the flat bench I had more mid-chest activation, incline bench I had more upper chest, and with dips I hit more lower chest. All these exercises activate all parts of the chest, but I like to have a variant that has more activation for each part of the pectoral muscle. The first set I do is 4 reps with 100 pounds, and then the second set is 90 pounds for 6 reps. I wish I had a different belt so at the bottom of my reps the weight isn't being lifted by the floor. However, for me, this personally makes the reps feel more difficult because it feels like when the weight is on the floor, I lose some activation, then need to reactivate my muscles harder for the concentric part of the movement. Going back to breaking plateaus, the second thing that I was thinking is mixing up how I plan to do my workouts. I currently am doing a 4-day-a-week push-pull split, meaning I have 2 days push and 2 pull days, and split my sets in about half between the 2 days. And this allows me to reintroduce stimuli to my muscles multiple times a week, while also not just burning through 1 or 2 muscle groups each workout session, and when I get to my later sets, I'm so gassed that I can't barely lift the weight, and I am practicing what is called junk volume. Another way I plan to break through my plateau is through something called undulating periodization, where I, for instance, will plan to go really heavy lower rep range on my first push day, and then on my second push day, it'll be more of a moderate to lighter weight with a moderate rep ranges of 6 to 15 reps depending on the exercise. With these lighter weights too, it gives myself time to work out a bit more on technique, mind-muscle connection, and really just greasing the groove, which will help me prime my body for when my heavy days come. In theory, this change will help me get stronger, but of course, I will need to stay consistent with my eating, sleeping, and overall recovery for this to fully work as well. If you have been struggling for a while, not seeing any changes in strength, then I definitely recommend, if you have your diet and sleep in control, then try this out or some other type of periodization to get over that hump. This usually isn't as necessary if you've been only lifting for maybe a year or two though. Instead, you should really be still building a firm foundation with technique and building size. The strength gains should be coming. If they haven't been coming, you should probably ask yourself if you have been intense enough in your workouts. Did you actually hit failure, or are you really being as consistent as you're telling yourself you are? Probably not. Anyways, that ramble had me completely skip over that previous exercise. I was doing the overhead press, 5 reps for 105 pounds and then 115 pounds for 3 reps. The following exercise here that you see me doing is skull crushers, or laying tricep extensions is what some other people call it, because I am in fact going back behind my head instead of directly over my skull. For this, I 50 pounds and then drop down to 35 pounds because 50 pounds was too much for that first set. Final tricep exercise before going to do shoulders is a burnout set. My goal is more metabolic stress, just taking everything I have left in my triceps out. For tricep dips, be sure your torso is more upright than leaning forward, otherwise you'll be using your chest too much. Here, you see I go to failure and then add 40 pounds of assistance and finish out as many reps as I can. An alternative, if you are strong enough to do this with weight and then drop the weight off and do body weight. If you can't do body weight, then find an amount of assistance where you can do approximately 6 to 8 reps and then increase the assistance when you hit failure and keep going. Remember, give everything you've got. We don't want to leave any reps on the table when we're doing this burnout set. I also want to take a moment to talk about mental health. When I'm doing these grueling burnout sets or pushing myself to absolute failure, it helps me keep my head on straight. When I started working out again at the beginning of this year, mental health was the primary reason I wanted to get back into it. The hormone released by pushing yourself is nothing to scoff at, guys. It may physically hurt, but the mental gains are also insurmountable. The next exercise is lateral raises, 2 sets of 12 to 15 reps. I was able to do 80 pounds for both sets. Follow this with rear delt raises, 2 sets of 15 reps. I did 115 pounds for 11 reps and then 100 pounds for 10 reps. Anyways, back to the talk about mental health. The hormones help, the improved physique helps with confidence as well, but merely seems to have been a byproduct of my primary goal. Since then, I've added a goal of being as strong as possible. Before this year, I was very apathetic, likely a combination of multiple factors. One was obviously I wasn't working out. 2 is I work night shifts and don't get much socializing in, and that paired with an introvert personality does not make for a good mental health. In addition, I'm married and a father of a 2-year-old and a 7-month-old, and am a critical care RN, as you've probably seen on my shirt. So add the stress of providing and the compassion fatigue into play, I was a total mess. At least now, I have added something healthy to help reduce my stress and help balance things out. Combine this with the better eating habits, I feel like I'm getting back on track. Tell me in the comments, guys, what is the primary reason you work out? Also, what are some other healthy things that you do to help keep your head on straight? Back to the workout. You may be wondering why I'm doing rear delts on a push day. Come on, if you are going to hit your lateral raises, always couple them with the rear delts. I don't personally focus so much on front delts because of the work they get from all the bench pressing. I did add the overhead press as you saw earlier because I really see it as another big lift that is overall just really impressive if you can lift a lot of weight with it. Not there yet, but hopefully soon. More importantly, the side delts and rear delts are a couple of muscles that definitely are overlooked more than they should be. The side and rear delts are something that could always use more work. So these are something I'd say are fine to add to pretty much every workout of the week. On to legs. On my first push day, I start with legs because I do squats and it's an overall more taxing movement for me. The leg press, however, painful, is not as taxing and it helps me add a lot of weight to really get my body used to heavier loads. Here, I do 2 sets of 8 reps. First set is 748 pounds and second is 838 pounds. This being because the press itself is 118 pounds with no plates added on. I do like this exercise for the heavier loads and quad development it can give, however, there are some things to keep in mind. With really heavy loads like this, make sure your leg press doesn't have a seat that rounds your lower back because you don't want a lower back compression injury. And second, don't overextend your knee. You can lock them out without overextending, but if you do overextend, the risk of injury can be detrimental. I also like how accommodating the leg press is if you want to work your quads with legs wide, close together, or one at a time. Overall, if used correctly, one of my favorite exercises to do, however controversial this movement might be. Wrapping up with the leg press and that 838 pound 8 rep personal best, we move on to back lunges. I like to call these knees over toe back lunges though. You may have watched Knees Over Toes guy and all his bulletproof knees. I don't get my knees as far over my toes as he does, but I have found that my knee health is overall much better since I started implementing my movements by moving my knees over my toes. In high school weight class, it was drilled into me to keep my knees behind my toes, but since then have found this to be bad information that has been passed down along the years. I not only implement this for my lunges, but also squats, which overall has increased my squat strength, balance, and makes me finally feel like I'm getting a straight path through my whole movement. I do 2 sets of 10 lunges on each side with a 40-pound dumbbell in each hand. One caveat I have for lunges like this is that they were not made for those with weak lungs and a weak heart. I have sorely been lacking on my cardio since being back, and with these lunges I felt like my lungs and heart were giving out before my leg muscles. This was a wake-up call for me. Cardio isn't just for your longevity, but also if you want to get stronger, don't skip your cardio, guys. I've been taking some rest days on my days that I work, but this has me thinking before or after work, getting in even just a few minutes of intense cardio will likely translate to some strength gains. Some other good alternatives to these lunges are called Bulgarian split squats or total knee extension lunges. With Bulgarian split squats, it is basically a lunge but keep one foot up on a bench. These can be modified to work quads by keeping a upright posture or working glutes with a forward-leaning posture. Total knee extension lunges, or TKE lunges for short, are if you do a lunge and instead of stepping back to a standing position, you just extend your front leg all the way forward. To increase the difficulty when I do those, I add a band behind my knee attached to a dumbbell rack or some lower immovable object. Just look at this guy in the video, questioning everything about what has led him to this point in his life. He's wondering if he could have done something differently that would have allowed him to get out of being in this current state. I suppose he could have worked on his cardio up to this point. Maybe he could have just stayed at home and not come in. However, he probably would have fallen into a dark, quiet depression and struggled mentally more at home than he is here. What a difficult predicament he appears to be in. But deep down, I think I see some inkling of joy down in his crying heart as he prepares himself to take on what his mind says no to, but an outside force pushes him back toward the weight. It speaks to him saying, "This is the only way. Be something more than you were before, and stop stepping down. Instead, step back into your lunge." That's right, another lunge, and another, and another. If you just take it one at a time, you will eventually find peace once again. What a wonderful life you will have, filled with completion, success, and big quads. Well done. The next exercise is 2 sets of hip abductor machine. Abduction means moving the body part away from you, so in this situation, it's moving your leg away from your body. This will work both your hip and glutes. The abductors are important for overall balance and athleticism and are a muscle that many people don't train, so don't let this be one of your weak points. Pick a weight that you can get nearly to your full range of motion with. I'm seeing 2 issues with what is going on watching myself with this machine that I will have to fix the next time I use it. The first is that I am simply trying to lift too much weight. As you can see, I'm barely getting the machine to move. The second limiting factor I have here, honestly, is I'm just not that flexible. Not being as flexible limits me to a smaller range of motion for this. It is good to use, however, still, because of course, there are no muscles that we want to miss and have a weak point on. Eventually, as we get into my second set on the machine, we will see that I do drop the weight and the range of motion does increase, signifying I probably should have started with that weight to begin with. Not every movement has to be an ego lift to push as much weight as you can. No one cares really how much you can lift with the abductor machine. The final exercise is the calf extension. I do 3 sets of 15 reps, 125 pounds. Each set I change my foot position, the first pointing toes outward, second toes point forward, and third toes point inward. I don't necessarily think it is necessary to change how your foot is each time, but I do feel a more intense contraction on each part of my calf when I do this. I do find this muscle really pretty boring to train, so adding in some type of variation just makes the movement more enjoyable for me. This muscle is just something that can be hammered over and over again and usually is very difficult to get results with. I must forewarn you though, if you train calves hard and aren't used to it, you may have difficulty walking around for a few days up to a couple of weeks, speaking from personal experience. However, it is one of the few muscles people actually can see, not always covered by clothing, so if you can make them look big, it is a good sign to the world you are pretty strong. Let me know if you think the calf is actually something worth training. We're wrapping up here. Thank you for watching. Please consider subscribing, liking, and leaving me a comment about what you found helpful. Take care.